Hello everyone, Professor Toybox here along with Donald Duck, and we're back in my Duckburg toy box to work on our next short story. I wanted to do a second Beagle Boys story since their schemes to steal Uncle Scrooge's money are a recurring theme in DuckTales and in the Uncle Scrooge comics. This time they're digging a tunnel underneath Scrooge's money bin. Scrooge hears the noise and he asks Donald to investigate. I've already built the tunnel. I did that in episode 2 when I was placing the terrain for this toy box, and that's right here, as you can see there. This tunnel, though, should be covered up. I don't want it to be visible until this story begins, so I'm going to use a replayer to do that. And as we come out of Spark mode, I'm going to drop a replayer right over here. And we're going to come into the properties and set the playback interval to 0. And I'll step on so I can get to the little menu and start recording. Step off so I can get back into the toy box drawers. And I'm going to drop down a terrain block to cover up the tunnel. And I've already set the terrain style to be the Metroville style. There we go. Exit out. And then come back over here, stop recording, and press A to clear. So now we have our tunnel, and I'll press Y to go ahead and play it back. So at the very start of the toy box, if we haven't played the first Beagle Boys story yet, you won't see the tunnel. There's no indication here that there's anything coming up for that. So that's good. Now, we're going to need a bunch of other toys for this. So I'm going to come back down to the Creativitoys drawer. And I'm going to reuse the radar marker for Uncle Scrooge. I think we can safely do that. We're going to need a second text displayer because the one over there is hooked up to some other things for the first story. So I don't want to interfere with that. And same with the dynamic trigger. So we're going to need a second one of those. And I'm going to need, let's see, another enemy wave generator for this new batch of enemies. And we'll go ahead and drop this over here, out of the way a little bit. And for that, we're going to need some extra locators that'll tell us where we want to put these enemies. And I'm going to set up this mission with 5 Beagle Boys. So that means I'm going to put down 5 locators. And that's facing the correct direction. So that's great. We'll put a couple of them in the tunnel. And we'll put a couple of them out here around the front of it. And then we'll go ahead and hook those up to the enemy wave generator. Whoops, new locator connection. And this little story is pretty easy to build. There's nothing here that's too difficult. The main feature of this story is that replayer covering up that tunnel until we're ready for it. The rest of it's just a simple Beagle Boy battle. But it's one more activity to do in here that features the Beagle Boys, one of the main DuckTales villains, so that's a good thing. It's always nice to see them. Alright, and then we'll configure the wave. And once again, I'm going to scroll down to find the Beagle Boys. There we go. And I'm going to set the count for them to 5. And for the properties, there's really no need to use the random generation at this point. Generation delay should be 0, and we don't need the generation effects. So the replayer is set up, the enemy wave generator is set up. Now we need to set up Scrooge as our mission giver. The radar marker is already hooked up to him, so we just need to hook up the dynamic trigger. So we'll connect that to Scrooge. He'll be the actor. And then we'll set the properties for the dynamic trigger so that the target is the connected actor, not this creativitoy. And for the trigger distance, I'm going to set that to be 4. And once again, for the text displayer, set the duration to 4 and the text style to be banner. Now, when we play through the first story, this radar marker on Scrooge goes off, and we play through the story, and the toy that ends the story, that kicks off the celebration for the end of that, is this enemy wave generator, which is generating the Beagle Boys that come out of that getaway car. And so this will be the thing that we use to start this next mission. So new logic connection on the wave defeated. We're going to come back over to the radar marker for Uncle Scrooge, and we'll turn that back on. And also, new logic connection on wave defeated. We'll come over to our new dynamic trigger and turn that on. And this dynamic trigger should be off when we first enter the toy box, because I don't want it competing with this one for the first story. And so we need to come over to our level starter and do a new logic connection on catalyze. We'll turn off this new dynamic trigger that we just put down for the second story. And that's now off. Okay, so finishing the first story turns Scrooge's radar marker back on and turns on this dynamic trigger. And we'll do a new logic connection then on the dynamic trigger so that when it's entered by player any, when they walk up to Uncle Scrooge, he's going to come over to this text displayer. And for this, I'm going to go down to the confused drawer, and he's going to say, "What was that?" So he's letting you know he heard something. And this text displayer, when the text is displayed, should turn around and turn off that dynamic trigger. The other thing this should do, in addition to displaying the text, so new logic connection when entered by player any, we should turn this radar marker back off. And also clear that replayer. So when entered by player any, we're going to clear the replayer and remove this block, which opens up the tunnel. And we also want to generate the enemies. So when entered by player any, come to the enemy wave generator over here and say generate the wave. So now the tunnel is open, the Beagle Boys are over here, the player can wander over and battle them, and when the wave is defeated, the mission will be over. So on wave defeated, we're going to come over to the sound generator, and I'm going to come to the musical category and play our fanfare that I like to use for when side quests are completed. And we also need to go to the action enforcer. So when wave is defeated, Come over to our action enforcer and have Donald celebrate. And there we go. That should be everything. So I'm going to go ahead and play through this first mission again offline, because we don't need to see that again. And then we'll come and test Uncle Scrooge's second mission. So I'll be back in just a few moments. Okay, I have saved my game and reloaded the toy box. And I've also just disabled their getaway car. So let me go ahead and defeat these guys. There we go. And now you see the radar marker is back on for Uncle Scrooge over here. So now we can come up and talk to him. And he says, "What was that?" Now we have some new enemies on the radar over this way. And we have some here, but you can't see them. They're actually underneath you. So we come over here, and now that tunnel's exposed. Now we can fight the Beagle Boys again. And when you turn around, you see that they've been digging a tunnel. So there we are. That's 2 different stories now with the Beagle Boys, and I think that's enough. Next time we'll work on a different story with a different set of villains. Until then, I want to thank you for watching and spending a little time with me today in Disney Infinity. I still love this game after all these years. There's nothing else like it, and the toy box is so versatile. If you love Disney Infinity and haven't already subscribed to my channel or signed up on my blog, I encourage you to do so. That way you won't miss a single episode. And don't forget that you can find floor plans and logic diagrams on my blog that will help you build this toy box on your own console or PC if you want to do that. Thanks again for watching, and I'll be back on Monday with the next episode in this series.